So my name is Mark, and I'm here to talk about why people should build an L2 instead of an all L1. This is a very fun topic that a lot of people have been talking about recently. So the main idea, value propositions. We need to focus as a community on the value propositions of building on Ethereum, because we can't just say that Ethereum is better. We need to actually have real value propositions, and they need to be obvious to the customers. We can't get mad at people for not choosing Ethereum. They have businesses that they're trying to build, and we need to provide value propositions that are so obvious that they decide to choose Ethereum for that reason, right? So what is a value proposition? It communicates the unique benefits that you provide, right? And some people act like Ethereum solves everyone's problem. I would love if Ethereum solved everyone's problem, but in reality, not everyone is choosing Ethereum. So we should check ourselves and think back and understand why people aren't choosing Ethereum and then solve for those issues. So who are the customers? The customers are people that want to sell block space by running a chain. And this is important just to be very clear about. When we're talking about value propositions, who are trying to win to Ethereum, this is building an L2. We want to find, organizations that want to sell block space. So what are some value propositions that you get from running an L2? You get the most secure form of ETH in your L2 because the proof system is much more native and closer. If you're going to build an all L1, the ETH that you get into that all L1 is going to be secured by some sort of bridging system. And generally, the bridging systems provided by rollups using the native bridge are usually more secure or more trustless or more battle tested than other forms of bridges. So why is this useful? ETH is generally an asset that people want to hold. They want to use in DeFi. So by going with an L2, you get a better form of ETH than you would by setting up an all L1 and having ETH on that all L1. It's also open source. So one major benefit of building an L2 is that the rollup frameworks, they're open source. You can go in, you can look at the code, you can understand what you're getting. And this is actually really important because the Clarity Act talks about how the definition of a blockchain is requires the code to be open source. Now, the Clarity Act has not passed yet. It's still going through the U.S. government, but there are a bunch of chains today that are not open source, that are very popular. And it's unclear what will happen if the Clarity Act passes and it requires that a blockchain network is open source. They'll have to open source their code, right? But generally, open source is good. People can come, they can understand what they're getting when they're using the network. They can contribute if they want. They can change it. So yeah, rollups, you're going to get open source code. Also, permissionless bridging, right? The rollup, you can permissionlessly bridge into a rollup. And this is really good for long tail assets. Now, the question that I want to ask is the majority of usage, a lot of the usage of chains today, it's through stablecoins that have their own bridge that they don't necessarily use the rollup's native bridge. So is this idea of permissionless bridging strong enough of a value prop to have potential chain operators choose an L2? I think that as a community, I think that this is a value prop that we can improve and make it a stronger value prop. Generally, think of Circle. Circle has USDC, and they want a cohesive bridging experience where they can easily bridge that USDC to any chain. And if they use the native roll-up bridge for this, it's not going to allow them to bridge between every chain in the same seamless way. So this is why Ethereum is working on things like real-time proving and trying to standardize bridging efforts. So yeah, this is a great place to improve. Also, censorship resistance. With roll-up frameworks, you get the censorship resistance of L1. So with an alt L1, it's going to be really difficult to get the same amount of censorship resistance. And this is a very fun instance. There's an L2, Sonium. They have this policy where they believe that IP needs to be protected on chain, and they will not include your transaction if you are infringing on IP rights. Now, you can still include a force include transaction through L1, and you can do whatever you want because it's censorship resistant. It will be very difficult to create an alt L1 that has as good of censorship resistance properties as Ethereum. And L2s inherit the censorship resistance properties of L1. I think we saw earlier this year there was a hack on SWI, and all the validators were in a group chat, and they all came together and decided to start censoring transactions. Now, the question to ask here is, it might be right to censor a hack transaction to prevent crime on chain, but the definition of crime might change over time. So very unclear if the validators of a chain are able to do it once, they'll probably be able to do it again in the future. Maybe the definition of crime changes and they're just blocking an everyday user's transactions. Okay, so another thing is economic security. So roll-ups gain the finality properties of the L1. It's going to be really difficult for an alt L1 to build up the same amount of economic security as Ethereum, just because there's so much ETH at stake. Now, the question is does economic security actually exist? Because people in Solana say that it doesn't. And this is going to be a really interesting thing to watch over the coming years, because we'll get to see in practice with Bitcoin, who Bitcoin's economic security is going down with every halving. Economic security is basically like this idea of what is the cost of reorging the chain, right? Solana doesn't have slashing, and they seem to be okay. So we'll see. I think that this is a place where, as a community, we can kind of improve our potential value props. Okay, so EVM equivalence. The idea here is that with rollups, you get EVM equivalents, you get all of the same upgrades as Ethereum. This allows the network effect of applications and developer tooling to just work across the Ethereum ecosystem. The problem is that this can also be accomplished with an alt L1. Plasma recently launched like a few days ago their EVM equivalent too. So I think that one way that we can make this value prop strong is making sure that we adopt all of L1's features very quickly into the L2s. And we did this with in the OP stack with EIP 7702. One day after it activated on L1, it was available in OP stack in production. Okay, so another reason why you would want to launch an L2 is getting to market fast. All of these frameworks are battle tested. They operate at scale in production today. And it's really important to use battle-tested software so that you don't put your users at risk of having their money stolen. So if you use an L2, you can use battle-tested software and then focus on your go-to-market and building out your app layer instead of worrying about the infrastructure. If you're launching an all L1, you're going to need to focus on hiring a protocol team to develop your blockchain software, the protocol, and that is a giant pain. Maintaining blockchain protocol software is not fun, very difficult. Well, it is pretty fun, but it's difficult. It's a pain. You have to be worried about all sorts of bugs, attacks all the time, constantly paranoid. So yeah, build an L2 and focus on go-to-market instead of hiring a protocol team. So battle-tested software, right? We can look at, the existing L2 frameworks like OP Stack powers Base and powers OP Mainnet. These networks are processing millions and millions of transactions per day. So, and they've been up for years at this point with no downtime, very little downtime. Very battle tested. If you're rolling your own stack, you have to worry about all the downtime possibilities and how to handle that. Whereas going with the L2 framework, you kind of get all this out of the box. You know that it's not going to get hacked. Then you also have the Ethereum community. So you have this community of diehard zealots that just love Ethereum. This is going to be impossible to replicate with an all L1. You're not going to find another community that is as diehard as the Ethereum community. There are other communities that are pretty cool. Like, definitely have to say respect to the Hyperliquid community. They built a nice little thing. So there are other communities that are good. But the Ethereum community, definitely the strongest in my opinion. But the question is that we have to ask ourselves, are these value propositions enough? We can't just assume that they are. We can't get mad at potential customers for not choosing Ethereum. We have to ask, why did they not choose Ethereum? How can we improve so that the next potential customer will choose Ethereum? So, why build an all L1? We've got potential execution risk. We're relying on the L1 core developers to scale blobs, to scale data availability. And every L2 has to think about this execution risk. They're relying on another set of teams to scale DA, to scale, these teams, all these roll-up teams have enough to worry about trying to grow their apps. They don't want to be bottlenecked by another team that might not ship fast enough. Then lack of native privacy. A lot of recent all L1s launch because Ethereum doesn't have some sort of native privacy built into it. They want a privacy feature for compliance. So I do think that there's some cool privacy solutions potentially on the way in Ethereum. Check out EIP 7503, Zero Knowledge Wormholes. Very cool. Let's try to get this into Ethereum. I don't think that it would solve everything though, but it's a step in the right direction. There's also privacy pools. Check that out. It's live today. It's like compliant Tornado Cash, very compliant. All right, so gas abstraction. Another thing here is chain operators want to let their users pay for gas in any token. And using something like ERC 4337 with paymasters, it just isn't good enough. Right now, it's just extra infrastructure. A chain operator needs to pay for that extra infrastructure. So we have this vision of account abstraction. This is definitely a place that we can improve on to win more customers. Faster finality. Ethereum takes about 15 minutes to finalize, whereas other consensus protocols that are more traditional, like Byzantine fault tolerant, they can finalize much faster, like potentially in the matter of seconds. So the question is, does Ethereum make the right trade-offs here? Is there a way that we can get faster finality? Because a lot of these alt L1s, they're launching alt L1s because they want faster finality. I'm going to skip forward. I'm out of time. Okay, another thing is specialized block space. Tempo launched because they wanted to have specialized block space. You could imagine having a base fee that is specific for transfers only. Ethereum is never going to introduce these things into the base layer itself. This is an interesting one. Being specifically not credibly neutral. Ethereum has this goal of being a credibly neutral base layer where everyone has the same, no one has an unfair advantage. But you could imagine that an alt L1 specifically as part of its value prop gives an unfair advantage to certain applications through vertically integrating them and enshrining them directly into the chain. And potentially this creates a better product. So credibly neutral is really good for like hard times. Right now we're in good times, so it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. Then the last thing, validator set. All L1s, sometimes they want to have multiple validators, multiple different entities that can build blocks. L2s, they have a single sequencer. So this is one way that L2 frameworks could improve. They can allow for leader election, rotating different leaders so that there's different block builders. And yeah, that's it.